welcome to part 6 on how the Cadian army is organised, and in this episode we are going to explore how the various platoon formations are organised within the 18th Cadian army group. From a personal point of view, if you are a big fan of the Astra Militarum, especially when it comes to the Cadian formations when fighting your battles in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, this video will be incredibly useful as to how you form your platoons from a narrative perspective. As a big fan of the Astra Militarum, I have spent many hours forming up these formations for your viewing pleasure, and I hope you find this video useful. So let us begin. The Cadian Light Infantry Platoon. Here is the layout of the Cadian Light Infantry Platoon. This formation consists of a platoon command section, 3 Cadian infantry squads, 3 special weapons squads, and 3 heavy weapons squads, all equipped with autocannons. The battlefield role for a Cadian light infantry platoon, from a narrative point of view, they often fought as scouts, raiders and skirmishers, soldiers who fight in a loose formation, ahead of the main army, to harass, delay, disrupt supply lines, and generally soften up an enemy before the main battle. The insignia is as follows. 1 in every 3 platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and the other 2 platoons are led by second lieutenants. The highest ranking infantry squad within the platoon is of the rank of Staff Sergeant, Sergeant, and then Corporal. All 3 special weapons teams are led by a Lance Corporal, and all 3 heavy weapons squads are also led by Lance Corporals. The Cadian Infantry Platoon. Here is the layout of the Cadian Infantry Platoon. It is almost identical to that of the Light Infantry Platoon. However, it has a dedicated transport, a Chimera APC, in support. It consists of a command squad, a dedicated transport, commonly known as a Chimera APC, 3 infantry squads, 3 special weapons teams, and 3 heavy weapons squads. The Cadian Infantry Platoon is almost identical when it comes to the battlefield role. However, this type of platoon is usually equipped with more heavily armoured weaponry. They can be a mixture of heavy weapons, but the most common of which is still the autocannon. And furthermore, they'll have more special weapons as well, including plasma guns, melter guns, and flamers. The main difference between the Shock Trooper Platoon and that of the Cadian Infantry Platoon is that the Cadian Infantry Platoon has often proven to be more successful from a tactical point of view when deployed in urban warfare, whereas the Cadian Shock Trooper Platoon is more successful at a frontline assault. The Cadian Infantry Platoon usually consists of 3 platoons that form into a company, 2 of which are mainly guardsmen, second class, and then the last platoon acts as a reserve. They're usually green, and therefore they are guardsmen third class. Furthermore, the Cadian Infantry Platoon forms as a backup for the Cadian Shock Trooper Platoon if the Cadian Shock Trooper Platoon has suffered additional casualties, and therefore the Cadian Infantry Platoon forms as a tactical reserve. Here is the insignia of the Cadian Infantry Platoon. 1 in every 3 Cadian infantry platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and then the rest of the platoons are led by a second lieutenant. At platoon level, the Chimera is of the rank of Corporal, then the second platoon is led by a Lance Corporal, and then the rest of the platoons are that of Guardsmen second class. The 1st Infantry Squad is led by a Staff Sergeant, and then Sergeant, and then Corporal. All 3 Special Weapons teams are each led by a Lance Corporal, and then all 3 Heavy Weapons squads are led by a Lance Corporal. The Cadian Heavy Weapons Platoon. The Heavy Weapons Platoon is a special type of formation used by some regiments. While also led by a command section, it is composed entirely of heavy weapons squads. These squads can be attached to other platoons to provide additional fire support or fight as a coherent unit, while their overwhelming firepower can bring down even the toughest of opponents. A Cadian Heavy Weapons Platoon is a unit of Astra Militarum that is outfitted with heavy weapons intended to provide close or heavy fire support to standard Imperial Guard infantry. Though much of an infantry regiment is made of rank and file guardsmen, those soldiers with an affinity of bulky and more complicated weaponry are often gathered together within a dedicated heavy weapons company. This allows an Astra Militarum infantry regiment to bring devastating weaponry to bear without relying on armoured fighting vehicles from other divisions and their Militarum regimentum. Those who serve in the Heavy Weapons Platoon have but one straightforward role: to obliterate any enemies who cannot be overwhelmed by massed lasgun fire. If you've watched part 4 of how the Cadian army is organised on my YouTube channel, the Insignia is already described. However, there are more formations or different variants of heavy weapons platoons that have yet to be explained. The Cadian Mortar Support Heavy Weapons Platoon. Some platoons use mortars to rain high explosive shells upon enemy platoons that would otherwise be out of reach, pinning down the enemy whilst fast-moving units move in for the kill. This formation consists of 6 heavy weapon squads, all equipped with mortars, and including the usual support units to form up the platoon. The Cadian Fire Support Heavy Weapons Platoon. Other heavy weapon squads act as fire support teams armed with heavy bolters or autocannons. They lay down a curtain of fire that can mow down packed ranks of infantry in a welter of gore, and whilst tearing apart light vehicles when equipped with the lightest main portable weapons. This formation consists mainly of 3 heavy weapons squads, of which are heavy bolters, and 3 heavy weapons squads of autocannons. Some of the fire support platoons can be all equipped with heavy bolters. Therefore, 6 heavy weapons squads, all equipped with heavy bolters, can unleash a devastating amount of firepower, and vice versa with the autocannons, being equipped with 6 heavy weapon squads, all with autocannons, of which it will wreak havoc on light vehicles, as well as monsters. The Cadian Anti-Tank Heavy Weapons Platoon. Heavy weapons squads are excellent anti-tank units as well as anti-monster. Such teams use las cannons and missile launchers to pick out heavy vehicles or monsters, light alien creatures, and other armoured targets. This formation consists of 3 missile launcher squads and 3 las cannon squads. And yes, in the 18th Cadian Army Group, some platoons, but quite rarely, can be dedicated missile launcher squads. And of course, having a dedicated platoon to have 6 heavy weapons squads of las cannons, bringing anti-tank nightmare to the enemies of the Imperium. The Cadian Pioneer Platoon. Formation consists of a platoon command section, a dedicated transport, a Chimera APC, 3 infantry squads, and 6 special weapons teams. These units are usually equipped with flamers, melters, or that of demolition charges, but can be equipped with other special weapons, depending on what the mission role is. This formation of the members of the Assault Pioneer Platoon is an infantry soldier who is responsible for the construction of tools for infantry soldiers to cross natural and main obstacles, as well as breaching of enemy fortifications, supervising the construction of field defense work such as bunkers, support weapon firing positions, the use of demolitions, landmines and booby traps, as well as their clearance, and performing all other normal infantry duties as the situation requires. The following is the insignia on how the Cadian Pioneer Platoon is organised. 1 in every 3 platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and the other 2 platoons are led by second lieutenants. At platoon level, the Chimera APC, the first platoon is led by a corporal, then a second platoon is led by a lance corporal, and then the rest of the platoons are led by guardsmen second class. The first infantry squad is led by a staff sergeant, and then sergeant for the second squad, and then the third squad, the squad is led by a corporal. And all 6 of the special weapons teams are led by a lance corporal. Cadian Demolitions Platoon. This formation is pretty much identical to that of the Cadian Pioneer Platoon. However, they possess 9 Cyclops Demolition vehicles. The Cyclops Demolition vehicle is used by the Astra Militarum for battlefield demolition. Basically a small remote-controlled vehicle packed with explosives and guided towards a target from a distance. It is used for breaching enemy fortifications, such as pillboxes and bunkers, with devastating results. Cyclops are small vehicles able to be carried in a Chimera or Valkyrie, and operated through a remote control device consisting of a small handset connected to a backpack Foxcaster. It is said that a Chimera and Crassus armoured assault transporter can carry 2 Cyclops within their hulls. Cyclops are commonly used to remove enemy strongpoints and bunkers, but have found other uses on the battlefield. Among these, clearing obstacles such as minefields and tank traps, or to destroy buildings during street fighting. While the explosive charge is large enough to damage enemy vehicles, stormtroopers have been known to use Cyclops as sabotage weapons, landing them behind enemy lines with single operator to target command posts, supply dumps, or bridges. Cyclops are assigned on a first-come, first-served basis. A few guardsmen have been specialised training required to pilot them, but the fact that they reduce the number of dangerous jobs they have to do makes them popular amongst the infantry. The Cadian Mobile Anti-Tank Platoon. This formation is very similar to that of the previous Pioneer Platoon. However, the big fundamental difference with this type of platoon is that of the Reaper laser destroyers. In this formation, there consists 9 Reaper laser destroyers to wreak absolute havoc against enemy vehicles as well as monsters. However, the main weakness of the Cadian Mobile Anti-Tank Platoon is that there's 40k technology involved, of which it is a rare sight indeed to be fielded in the heat of battle. This formation is incredibly rare. However, in the 18th they do possess these formations, and they consider them to be relics. The Cadian Static Heavy Weapons Platoon. This formation consists of the following units: a platoon command squad, a Chimera APC, 3 Type 2 infantry squads, and 6 saber weapons batteries. This platoon formation consists mainly of saber gun platforms. There are 6 batteries in total. Each battery consists of 3 saber weapon platforms. The saber gun platform is a static defense emplacement used by the Imperial Guard and Planetary Defense Forces. They are favoured by armoured and support regiments, and regiments tasked to defend a strategic location, where they are issued to heavy weapons platoons in place of their normal loadout. Common mountings include twin-linked heavy bolters for anti-personnel duty, twin-linked las cannons for anti-armour firepower, and either twin-linked autocannons or quad-mounted heavy stubbers for air defence. In some place of weaponry, some saber platforms will instead mount a massive searchlight for illuminating targets in darkness. The insignia for this type of platoon is as follows. 1 in 3 Cadian static heavy weapons platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and the other 2 platoons are led by second lieutenants. The Chimera APC is of the rank of corporal for the first platoon, then second platoon is a lance corporal, and then the rest of the platoons are guardsmen second class. The first infantry squad is led by a staff sergeant, then sergeant, and then corporal. And each of the 6 saber weapons batteries are led by a lance corporal. The Cadian Ariel Spotter Platoon. This formation consists of a platoon command, a Chimera APC, 3 Type 2 infantry squads, and 3 batteries of saber weapons batteries that are replaced with the searchlight. A searchlight or spotlight is an apparatus that combines an extremely bright source, traditionally a carbon arc lamp, with a mirrored parabolic reflector to project a powerful beam of light of approximately parallel rays in a particular direction, usually constructed so that they can be swiveled about. The platoon's primary role is for that when it comes to detecting enemy aircraft in the air, especially in the darkness. This formation would be attached to a batteries of hydras. The 3 infantry squads that are in support are there to protect those that are occupying the searchlights. The insignia for this formation is as follows. Again, 1 in every 3 Cadian aerial spotter platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and the other 2 platoons are led by a second lieutenant. The dedicated transport, the Chimera, first platoon is led by a corporal, second platoon is led by a lance corporal, and then the rest of the platoons are that of guardsmen second class. Type 2 infantry squad is led by a staff sergeant, and then sergeant, and then corporal. And the 3 saber weapons batteries that are equipped with searchlights are all lance corporals. The Cadian Reconnaissance Platoon. This formation consists of a platoon command section, a Chimera APC, 2 infantry squads or 2 veteran squads, and 2 special weapons teams. The Cadian Reconnaissance Platoon is a speciality platoon comprised of infantry soldiers, unlike infantry platoons whose primary mission is to kill the enemy. The Reconnaissance Platoon's primary mission is to provide the battalion commander information about the enemy. Here is an overview of the insignia for this particular formation. 1 in every 3 Cadian Reconnaissance platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and then the rest of the platoons are led by second lieutenants. The Chimera APC of the first platoon is led by a corporal, and then the second platoon is lance corporal, and the rest of the platoons are that of guardsmen second class. First infantry squad, or a veteran squad, is led by a sergeant, and then the second squad is led by a corporal. The 2 special weapons teams are that of lance corporals. The Cadian Whiteshield Platoon. This formation consists of the following units: a platoon command section, a Chimera APC, and 3 squads of 20 to 30 Whiteshields. Whiteshields are young reinforcements to an existing Imperial Guard regiment. They fight in actual combat as part of their latter training, until they have proven themselves ready to join the regiment as full guardsmen. Officially designated as probators, they are more commonly called Whiteshields in the Cadian army, as well as cadets, probationers, or gun babies. Whiteshields are the sons fathered by guardsmen during their posting and raised within the regiment. In the case of Cadian regiments, Whiteshields are instead members of their Cadians youth armies. As they are not yet considered the true guardsmen, Whiteshields do not wear unit insignia. The only markings they are allowed to wear are blank white badges, as well as white helmet stripe, that distinguish them. Imperial Guard regiments are generally posted to combat zones, far from their homeworlds, and it is rarely practical to recruit from the homeworlds to replace casualties. Regiments that are left to garrison a world have conquered instead of gained recruits by drafting the sons of the regiment's guardsmen when they come of age. Children favoured by guardsmen are usually brought up within the regiment. They perform manual and support duties, which would otherwise eat into the regiment's fighting strength. Promotion from Whiteshield to guardsman is seen as a changing point in the recruit's life. They are afterwards considered adults and given the right to wear the regimental symbols on their uniform, and often receive ritual scars and tattoos. The following is the insignia of how the platoon is organised. 1 in 3 Cadian Whiteshield platoons is usually led by a first lieutenant, and the rest are led by second lieutenants. These are actually newly commissioned officers that have yet to gain more experience in the officer corps. The Chimera APC for the first platoon is led by a corporal, second platoon is led by a lance corporal, and the rest of the chimeras that form up the company are that of guardsmen second class. The recruitment rank for all 60 to 90 of these soldiers are that of Whiteshield. Cadian Veteran Platoon. Here is the layout of the Cadian Veteran Platoon at full strength. It has a platoon command section, a Chimera APC, and 6 veteran squads that form the main body. These soldiers that form up the body of this platoon are highly trained, motivated and disciplined soldiers that have gained experience in the battles of the 41st millennium. Cadian veteran platoons are rare, however. This is simply because of the attrition they suffer due to the campaigns and that of casualties that they have suffered. However, those that have survived these wars form up the Cadian veteran platoon. These are trusted soldiers that the High Command trusts. The Cadian veteran platoon is self-contained. They do not rely upon special weapons teams and heavy weapons squads to support them. Some Cadian veteran platoons have heavy weapons teams integrated into the veteran squads. What makes these veteran squads very effective is the amount of special weapons they can have as compared to the regular squads. They can have 3 special weapons instead of 1. Most of the veteran squads are equipped with las guns. However, some of the squads may be equipped with shotguns as well as auto guns. The following is the Insignia. 1 in every 3 platoons is led by a first lieutenant, but can act as an acting captain if the captain is not present, and then the other 2 platoons are led by second lieutenants. The Chimera APC for the first platoon is led by a corporal, the second platoon is led by a lance corporal, and then the rest of the platoons are that of guardsmen second class. The first veteran squad is led by a master sergeant and sergeant first class, staff sergeant, and then sergeant, and the rest of the squads that form the platoon are that of the rank of corporal. The Cadian Armoured Support Platoon. This formation has the minimal amount of support units to form up the platoon. It consists of a platoon command section, a Chimera APC, and 2 infantry squads. This formation is mainly in support of a single battery of artillery, or a single squadron of tanks, or that of a small tank company. The primary role of the Cadian Armoured Support Platoon is to protect the vehicles, the support of infantry. Here is the unit's insignia. 1 in every 3 Cadian Armoured Support Platoons is usually led by a first lieutenant, and then the rest of the platoons are led by a second lieutenant. The Chimera APC for the first platoon is led by a corporal, second platoon is led by a lance corporal, and the rest of the platoons are that of guardsmen second class. The first infantry squad is led by a sergeant, and then the second squad is led by a corporal. The Cadian Mechanised Platoon. Here is an overview of how the Cadian Mechanised Platoon is organised. They have a platoon command section, 5 Chimera APCs, 3 infantry squads, and has the option of having a Type 2 infantry squad and a special weapons team, which does have the option of having a Cyclops Demolition vehicle. A regiment may call upon Cadian Mechanised Platoon. All the infantry units in this formation possess their own organic transportation. Mechanised regiments feature a preponderance of the Chimera vehicle, but may also feature other transport vehicles, including designs unique to their homeworld. Mechanised formations can often be found providing support for armoured units, and may possess armour of their own, amongst other variants of fighting vehicle. 1 in every 3 Cadian Mechanised platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and the other 2 are led by a second lieutenant. The first Chimera is led by a corporal, the second Chimera is led by a lance corporal, and the remaining Chimeras are that of guardsmen second class. First infantry squad is led by a staff sergeant, and then sergeant for the second squad, and then for the Type 2 infantry squad it is led by a corporal. The special weapon team with the Cyclops Demolition vehicle is led by a lance corporal. The Cadian Heavily Armoured Mechanised Platoon. This formation consists of the following units: a platoon command section, 2 Crassus heavy transporters, 5 infantry squads, has the option of having 2 Cyclops Demolition vehicles. Before we go any further, we need to talk about the Crassus heavy transporter. The Crassus is named after one of Lord Solar Macaris's greatest generals, Borgen Crassus. The Crassus is equipped with a searchlight and smoke launchers, and armed with 4 heavy bolter sponsons, each which can be replaced with either heavy flamers, autocannons, or las cannons. The Crassus has a maximum carrying capacity of 30 infantry units, or 2 Cyclops Demolition vehicles. The Crassus may also be upgraded with a hunter-killer missile, dozer blade, or a pintle-mounted storm bolter or heavy stubber. It is said that some factions in Divisio Militaris believe that the Crassus chassis was reclaimed on the reconquered forge world of Zyko-Achrid. The Crassus drive system is considerably more powerful than other vehicles in its size. This was designed to not only cope with additional armour, but also to provide its driver with the speeder to deliver vehicle's human cargo to its destination under heavy enemy fire, and then move to a safer position to await their extraction. As such, its weapons are primarily used in a defensive role. The Crassus armoured transport is used widely by the Imperial Guard and the Adeptus Mechanicus forces, along with the Southern and Western Segmentum Tempestus. Recently, production from Lucius in the last several centuries has allowed it to also come into service with units near the Eye of Terror, where it develops an almost talismanic reputation due to its durability and power, though it is borne some disquieting of some within the Commissariat and Diplomatu Militarum. Crassus armoured transports were used by the Imperial Guard during the fighting of Betelgeuse III. Capable of holding up to 35 soldiers and 2 Cyclops demolition vehicles, the Crassus played a crucial role in the Battle of Alanatic, enabling Colonel Emptidia to destroy the important facility before it fell into the Eldar hands. The battlefield role is very similar to that of the standard mechanized platoons. However, the survivability is more possible with a heavily armoured transporter, like the Crassus. Here is the Cadian heavily armoured mechanized platoon's insignia. 1 in every 3 Cadian heavily armoured mechanized platoons is led by a first lieutenant, and then the other 2 platoons are led by second lieutenants. The Crassus heavily armoured transporter for the first platoon is led by a corporal. The next transporter is led by a lance corporal, and the remaining Crassuses within the company are that of guardsmen second class. The first infantry squad is led by a master sergeant, and then sergeant first class, staff sergeant, sergeant. The last infantry squad is led by a corporal, and of course adding the special weapons team that is led by a lance corporal, and adding a further option, the Cyclops demolition vehicles, of which there are 2 of them, in the platoon formation. Cadian Heavy Infantry Platoon. This formation consists of the following units: a platoon command section, a Taurox transporter, and 6 heavy infantry squads. Before we go any further into detail on how the Cadian infantry platoon is organised, we need to look at a key unit that has yet to be explained, and that is the Taurox and the Taurox Prime. The Taurox is an armoured personnel carrier that is used by the Astra Militarum. The Taurox is a common sight within the armies of the Imperial Guard, and was designed to hit hard and fast by exploiting gaps in the enemy lines, or plunging gaps in the Imperium's own. The Taurox's capacity to punch through seemingly impossible terrain also makes it an ideal counter-attack asset. Astra Militarum commanders will often hold back squads of short-ranged, hard-hitting infantry in Taurox APCs, throwing them into blunt enemy breakthroughs before the foe can build momentum. The twisted wreckage of tanks and piles of corpses that might block other reinforcement efforts are no issue for the Taurox, which will adroitly skirt round such obstacles with ease. For the same reasons, they are also regularly employed as light reconnaissance vehicles or tasked with running escort duties for columns of artillery. The Taurox will swiftly deploy squads of heavy infantry, countering unexpected threats with overwhelming firepower until reinforcements can be brought to bear. Though slightly less robust than the Chimera, Tauroxes are the swiftest ground transport vehicle in the Astra Militarum, and as such they are used for rapid redeployment and for vanguard maneuvers ahead of the main force. There is no better delivery system for small groups of soldiers armed with devastating weaponry and veterans, special weapons squads, and command squads who have shown the aptitude of the close-quarter firefights are often assigned a Taurox to carry them into battle. After the Taurox surges through the withering hail of incoming enemy fire, the hatches burst open and the passengers pour out, flamers and melter guns blazing. Though lightly armoured, the Taurox still packs a punch. Mounted on its hull are a pair of autocannons that mow down enemy forces as it roars into the breach. Once its infantry payload has disembarked, it can continue to provide a mobile base of heavy fire for them, moving alongside the troops as an assault escort. Alternatively, it may break from its former passengers and head for some other part of the battlefield, where it can lay waste to a fleeing enemy unit, or pick up and deliver a fresh infantry squad to their target. The rugged Castellan pattern quad-track unit affords Tauroxes the ability to negotiate even the most tangled terrain with ease. Axial servo dampeners redistribute the weight of the vehicle across its 4 tracks as it moves, allowing jagged outcrops and unevenly piled rubble to be traversed at full throttle. The Taurox's mobility is so reliable that the Astra Militarum commanders often elect to bring them on long campaigns that range across multiple war fronts. Whether their regiments end up fighting inside a crumbling hive city, though the knotted jungles of the Death World, or across the open plains of a barren planet, the Taurox will perform its duty. The Taurox is a robust infantry assault vehicle, and is heavily armed with thick plates and equipped with heavy weapons to both support infantry and bring heavy firepower to bear on enemy foot soldiers. The Taurox is primarily armed with a set of twin-linked autocannons, one located on each side of the vehicle's hull. The Taurox can have an armoured turret added to the top of the vehicle, and its twin-linked autocannons located on the top of the turret. This allows a 360-degree field of fire and an elevated fire location. The Taurox can also be equipped with either a pintle-mounted storm bolter or heavy stubber, either on top of the vehicle or equipped as part of its turret. The Taurox can also make use of the bull bars of its front to protect from debris, and can be equipped with many other standard non-standard Imperial Guard upgrades and attachments such as a searchlight, relic plating, a dozer blade, recovery gear, smoke launchers, extra armor plating, fire barrels, a hunter-killer missile launcher, camouflage netting, and an Agora array. The Taurox Prime. The Taurox Prime is a variant of the standard Astra Militarum Taurox armoured personnel carrier. The Taurox Prime is a specialist variant that was built for use for the elite Militarum Tempestus. Using the efficient and flexible Taurox design, The vehicle's chassis incorporates alkaline technologies that allow the vehicle to sustain tempestuous science while they operate in extremely hostile environments, up to and including the cold vacuum of space. The vehicle can be internally pressurized and features an array of life support systems. Furthermore, the vehicle's engines, using the proper rituals and prayers, are capable of channeling magnetic force into the Taurox Prime's tracks, enabling the vehicle to cling to vertical surfaces and even operate in zero gravity conditions. Heavy infantry consisted of heavily armed and heavily armoured infantrymen that were trained to mount frontal assaults and or anchor defensive centre of a battle line. This formation possesses a key strength, and that is the Cadian stormtroopers, which are the most heavily armoured infantrymen and also the most elite special forces in the Cadian army. They possess heavy armour, which is also known as carapace armour, and replacing the lasgun with the devastating Hellgun or hotshot lasgun. The 18th Cadian Army Group is fortunate enough to possess a few regiments of this crack fighting force. Here is the insignia for the formation. 1 in every 3 platoons is led by a first lieutenant who can also act as an acting captain, and then the other 2 platoons are that of second lieutenants and are also acting first lieutenants. The Taurox APC is led by a corporal for the first platoon. Second platoon consists of a lance corporal, and the rest of the Tauroxes, whether they be Tauroxes or Taurox Primes, are that of commanded by Guardsman First Class. The first Heavy Infantry squad is led by a Master Sergeant, and then Sergeant First Class, Staff Sergeant, and then the rest of the Heavy Infantry squads are led by Sergeants. The Cadian Mechanised Heavy Infantry Platoon. Here are the units that are in this formation. This unit possesses 4 Heavy Infantry squads and 4 Tauroxes. The Cadian Mechanised Heavy Infantry Platoon is an elite Army Special Operations force under the control of a Joint Special Operations Commander. There is no platoon command section in this formation. This is due to the fact that they take their orders from the battalion commander. Even though that this is a mechanised formation, this formation is primarily designed for hit and run tactics, rescue operations, and rapid reinforcement deployment. All of the members of the platoon are hand-picked by the battalion and regimental commander. They are the most trusted soldiers that the Imperial Guard has to offer within the regiment. Furthermore, this formation is unique in how they are organised. So let us talk about the insignia. The first Taurox is commanded by a corporal. Second Taurox is commanded by a lance corporal. And the rest of the Tauroxes, depending on how many platoons there are within the battalion, are that of Guardsman First Class. In command of the platoon, and taking orders from the battalion and regimental commander, is a Sergeant Major. The next Heavy Infantry squad is led by a First Sergeant, and then Master Sergeant, and then Sergeant First Class. Here is a quick overview of all the insignia that is mentioned in this particular video. The lowest rank is that of a Whiteshield, then Guardsman Third Class, then Guardsman Second Class, Guardsman First Class, Specialist Guardsman, Lance Corporal, Corporal, Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Sergeant First Class, Master Sergeant, First Sergeant, Warrant Officer 1, Second Lieutenant, First Lieutenant, and a Commissar. The Special Forces Insignia Overview. Guardsman First Class, Specialist Guardsman, Lance Corporal, Corporal, Sergeant, Staff Sergeant, Sergeant First Class, Master Sergeant, First Sergeant, and Sergeant Major. Thank you for watching this grand compendium video on how many platoons there are within the Cadian army group. In the next episode, we'll be exploring the Astra Militarum units of the self-propelled artillery. Infantry win firefights, tanks win battles, and artillery wins wars. Thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for more future content. And if you want to support my work further, do consider heading over to my Patreon page. Those who are currently supporting me will be featured in the end credits of this video, and I'd like to thank all of those people for supporting my work. You can be featured in our battle reports, unlock exclusive images, and work in progress. You can create your very own formations for me to showcase on YouTube. Gain battle honours, medals, and glory for the Imperium and for the Emperor. And a special thank you to Games Workshop themselves. Their narrative is absolutely fantastic, and it really does dig in deeper as to how the Imperial Guard and the Astra Militarum are organised. Even if it takes hundreds of hours of research, it is still a pleasure to discover the narrative behind the Astra Militarum. Again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, happy wargaming. For honour, and for glory, and for Cadia, Cadia will stand.